Greetings and salutations, welcome to a brand new video. Today we're going to be talking about my wish list of things or features that I want to see in Football Manager 2017. So these are things that I've thought of myself or wanted over the course of playing FM16, but also I went onto the official forums and had a look through and found some of my favourite ideas from there. And I'm just going to briefly talk about what my personal favourites are. And also at the end of this, I want you guys to leave your comments to say what you'd change or what you'd improve upon or what new features you'd like to see. And then, fingers crossed, it'll happen. That's because that's how life works. First off is training. Now, I think it was back in probably FM12 or something, I'm not quite sure, that training was quite involved and you could set up little regimes, you could play five-a-side and you could play piggy in the middle and you could play other games that happen in real life that improved the training, and you could really sort of utilise that to improve certain aspects of your team. Now it's just kind of, I've got such a set regime for training. Basically, I start a new season. So I go team cohesion because I've got new players who we want to, and match tactics so that all the new players can learn the new match tactics. Then after about a month or two, whenever I'm happy with it, I'll change it to sort of a balanced training regime and you know, attacking positioning or defending set pieces or whatever it is. But it's kind of, then I just sort of fire and forget it. I think it's such an important part of the game and I think they could do so much more with it. So I'd like to see a reintroduction of that sort of thing. Next up is just more of a quality of life thing. It's individual instructions for players. Let's say I start the game with a central midfielder. Now, he's a great passer with the ball, but he can't shoot for shit, right? He's dreadful. I play him as, I say, a playmaker. I tell him to shoot less, you know, that sort of thing. And then the 60th minute, you know, he's getting tired. I sub on my other central midfielder. He's very similar, but he's got 20 shooting. He's amazing. He can ping a ball from anywhere. So I want him to shoot more. Rather than every time I sub that player on, having to go through to the instructions, take it off, shoot less to shoot more, or play further up or whatever it is. It'd be nice to be able to say, when you come on, this is your options. Because you could do that for all of the different positions. Like a winger, for instance. You can go, okay, well, I want you to actually play wider or play narrow, depending on the person and stuff like that. So that would be quite nice. Next up, I want to talk to media interaction. Now, this is a weird thing for me because it's just really dull, and I'm not sure really what they can do to fix it. I'm sure in FM17 they're going to introduce a ton more different interactions and questions and answers you might get asked. But at the end of the day, after you've done them a couple of times each, you kind of go, okay, I'm bored of that shit now. I always sort of just leave it to my assistant. So I'm really not sure what they can do with that. Yeah, I think that same with them. I think they're kind of stuck with just having to offer a few more options each time, really. Next up is quite an interesting one, and this sort of talking about modern day football, where I think Football Manager lags behind, which is difficulty with owners and the directors of football. So you've seen with Mike Ashley at Newcastle and other people that they get too involved in the game and they might actually start pissing you off as a manager. So like, you know, stopping you signing players, or you've got a transfer committee where you can't just go out and sign who you want and you have to chat with the board to get it sort of approved, or just generally difficult to work with. Like nowadays, most clubs, the manager doesn't handle any sort of contract negotiations. That's all done by the director of football and stuff like that. So that sort of side would be interesting, that if you, at certain clubs with certain staff, you should be able to be a bit more restricted. So that might, you know, force you to leave or, you know, fall out with the director or whatever, or the owner. And I think that would be a really sort of much more modern way of doing football. Next up, I want to talk about, and this was probably one of my biggest things for me, is players with personalities, right? As of now, a player can, you know, get injured or could become unhappy because they're not getting enough game time. They might even miss training, and now, oh, that's a big thing. But that's kind of it, really. I'd like to see players with personalities, so get some more information, especially from sort of, because I make YouTube videos, a sort of storytelling aspect is that players might have falling out with other players, or get caught posting a dick pic on Snapchat, or a drunk night out, or sleeping with other players' wives. Talking to you, John. You know, just something to bring more life to the players. It would just be much more fascinating. And then it's like, oh, if these two players have really fallen out, then how do we, you know, do I have to sell one or whatever it is? And also, it might not be possible for existing players because you might get a lawsuit. You know, like if you've got this sort of perfect footballer that's never been in trouble in real life once, and then on the game he gets done for sleeping with Wayne Bridges' missus. Let's just use him as an example again. That, you know, that might not be possible. But you could do silly ones that have issues, but also maybe you could just do it for the regens. So these players actually have a bit of a personality. Like, you can have that left back that's just a bit of a bell end, but he's quite funny, and you know, that just a bit more life to them, I think would really be good. Next up is another important one for me. I quite like this idea. Was like a monthly board meeting. I'm not talking about a team meeting. They're fucking dreadful. Don't get me started. They're so pointless. It's ridiculous. But a monthly board meeting where you would meet with the board of directors or the owner, and you would go through what's been happening that month. So they might ask about why you're underperforming, or why a certain player is underperforming, or a disharmony in the squad, or finances, possible transfers, new sponsors, affiliate clubs. You kind of, rather than just randomly going to the board every time you need something, maybe a more structured, where you would generally, most managers would meet with directors on a sort of set amount of time and just have a chat with them and go through all the things of that month or whatever. So I think that would make really good sense, and it'd be quite interesting to do. One little bit, I'm not sure if it's like realistically possible, is to have a new feature where you could start, which is going to be much more realistic, is rather than most of us who like to start in lower league clubs and work your way up, but what about if you could start as the manager of the youth team or the under-21s, and that's how you start. So I could start as Blackpool's under-21 manager and do it from there and just manage that team and then get a job in management. That's much more realistic. That's kind of how it works most of the time. So that sort of thing would be nice. I'm not sure how doable that is, because then they'd have to put more detail into that league structure and stuff. But I think it's doable. Next up, I want to talk about the youth setup for Football Manager. Now, at the moment, all you can really do is improve your youth setup and the facilities and everything like that. And then March the 6th, you sit there with your fingers crossed, hoping for a good batch of regens. Like, that's so simplistic. A youth setup, a modern day youth setup, is all about scouting young talent. It's your scouting team, your staff should be involved in headhunting some of the best young talent from around the country or around Europe, and they should be actively involved in that. Or you should have maybe youth scouts. And also academies, like, that's one of the biggest things for me, is the academies should be in the game. And they should be upgradable like the other facilities. Because it's not uncommon nowadays for a young player to join Manchester United when they're 8 years old. But in the game, they just appear 15. And I think SI have commented on this before, saying that they can't legally represent real-life kids in the game for legal reasons. And I can understand that, but then, okay, so don't have them real then. They're all regens from the start of the game. And it'll be really good to get involved in these academies and see this player that's developed through your youth team from 10 years old and mould him into the player that you want to be, and set up foreign academies and do the same sort of thing. That would be a fascinating area. So finally, my favourite one, we'll do the match engine. This is, if you watch my videos, you'll hear me gripe about this on the odd occasion. First up, my favourite position, goalkeeper. That's what I play in real life. Not to any level, I'm shit and fat, but I've always played as in goal. The positioning of the goalkeepers is just horrific. So annoying to see some of the angles that the goalkeepers choose to take and some of the ridiculous decisions they make. Even the best goalkeepers in the world do it in Football Manager, and it's kind of ridiculous. But then also other stuff, like a goalkeeper might save a shot that's clearly going 10 yards wide, but they make this miraculous fingertip save for a corner, and you're like, mate, that was going miles wide. You would never do that. And also, like, the goals from tight angles just seems ridiculously overpowered, this Football Manager. It just, especially with the rebounds, and it's ridiculously tight, and they always seem to be able to pop it in. That sort of thing needs fixing. And just the defensive positioning as a whole. You'll see centre-backs go off on walkabout or stand in the same position as other centre-backs. That sort of thing, I think, definitely needs upgrading. And also, like, the crossing is beyond overpowered this season. On a regular basis, you'll see a winger or a fullback on the byline cross like a 45-yard ball that is perfect at the back post and for a tap-in. And it happens way too much. Definitely needs to be fixed. On more of the aesthetic side of the match engine, I think it's time to make a better match engine. We accept it because we're used to 2D and a shit match engine, so we kind of go, that's all right. But I like looking at, why would you not choose to have a better looking thing? And I think, the graphics are so outdated. If you took that apart and just sort of showed somebody, this is Football Manager, they'll go, what the fuck is this shit? it's like some little indie game, and it's not. It's a massive selling game, so I'm sure they could do something with that. And also, like, extra animations needed to be added to the game. One of my favourites for comedy moment is, let's say the defence plays a ball over the top and the striker's running onto it and your defender's running alongside him, and it's like a foot race to get to this ball, and then for no apparent reason your defender will just kind of run off in a slightly different direction for no apparent reason. And I'm sure in game they were shoulder to shoulder and he just got barged, or he got nudged a little bit, your defender out of the way, and he just went off. But in the game it just looks like he runs off because there's no animation, there's no sort of pulling animation. The players don't really interact with each other, which I think definitely needs to sort of be fixed. And one of the other things I'd like to see is that if any of you have won a cup, you'll realise the ridiculousness of the celebration. It's like 4 little gold ticker tape shit flashy things on the screen, so, oh, you won the cup, and it's like, really, is that the best you can do? That's like 2 minutes before the game launch. They were like, shit lads, we haven't added a cup winning thing. Alright, Dave, get on it. It's like, yeah, bosh, there you go, Photoshop couple of them bad boys in. It's awful. It wouldn't be that much work to have it so, you know, there's a bit more going on, there's a bit more, the fans go a bit more nuts, and you have a little celebration on the pitch, or you have a little stadium on the pitch where your players lift the cup. That would be amazing to see your captain, you know, from relatively sort of zoomed in, lifting the cup. That would be just brilliant. And also the fans, like, if you pay any attention to the fans while you're watching a game in the 3D match engine, you'll see it's like there's like 3 different character models. It's awful. It's painful to look at. And I think, you know, I'm not expecting every character to move individually, but I think they need to up the amount of different people there are there so it just looks a bit more varied. But the bigger thing for me is they should react to what's going on in the game more. So if your team is not doing well, like as a whole, let's maybe see the fans protest, like the current Wenger stuff, the signs. There should be a few more signs saying Loki out or whatever. Or they should not turn up. Or if your team's 3-0 down in the game with 10 minutes left, they should start walking out. That would be amazing. That would be superb, I think, to sort of give those fans a bit more life to them. I know they added flares, but that's once in a blue moon. You go, oh, flare, cool. But the flare, ironically, in the game looks quite nice graphics, and it makes everything else look so much more shit. But that sort of thing, that bring a bit more life to the fans. And also on the sort of subject of that, the sounds in the game are dreadful. I think they've always been dreadful. But I'd just like to see. I turn it off because it's so awful. It's kind of a non-stop. I was like, that's it, is it? Wow, that took 10 minutes in the sound booth, didn't it? I would like to see a much more dynamic set of fan noises that react to what's going on the pitch, much like the graphics themselves, and just have a bit more sort of fun with it. You know, if your team's doing well, I want to see much more chants. It can't be that difficult to record proper fan noise and proper chants and proper singing and just introduce that, code that into the game with relative ease, because at the moment it's just pointless having it on, to be honest. And last little point is that, because I'm old, right, can I have slightly bigger player names, please, on the 3D match engine? Because it's just a little bit too small. Just the option to make it a little bit bigger for us blindies, yeah? And I think that sort of about sums it up. Let me know what you guys think of my wish list. And also add your own ideas. Leave them in the comments. What would you like to see? What would you like fixed? What would you like improved? What weird and wonderful new features can you come up with? I'm sure there's a sort of ton more that I haven't really spoke about. And let's hope it sort of makes a difference. So let me know what you guys think. Thank you very much. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. What I'm gonna do is when we get a bit closer to launch, I'm gonna do like a bi-weekly video, just talking about the latest news of Football Manager 2017, the latest updates, the latest screenshots, the latest information. I'll be checking out all the news places to get as much information as I can. So make sure you check those out when they start coming out as we get a bit closer to the launch of FM17. And check out all my other careers and saves and team guides and Wonder Kids and all that good stuff. And thank you very much for joining me, guys. Thank you very much for listening to me rant. I love you all very much. Bye-bye.